Once a month. During Holy Communion, the pastors have planned for the sermon to be more child-friendly. What do I mean? It will be shorter in length. It will be simple enough for kids and complicated enough for adults. And I want to encourage parents to talk to your kids after service, when you have lunch, when you go home, about the sermon. And that's assuming that your children are allowed to listen to the sermon. I know some of you give them the phone or give them a storybook or let them run around. Try not to do that, right? If they are at the age where they can listen and comprehend, do give them an opportunity to listen to the sermon. We'll try to keep it as short as possible and as simple enough for them. So I begin by asking this question: why are you here? Children, ask your parents, why are you here? And then after that you can ask them, why am I here? Alright. Because God created you through the parents. Okay. You know, parents, children, you are here, of course, because your parents brought here. But how about the rest of us who came here, who chose to be here on this precious Sunday morning? Perhaps because you recognize that there is more to life than what you do on the other days of the week. Perhaps because you perceive a reality beyond the physical. There is something spiritual, something that more than meets the eye. Perhaps you have gathered here because you believe in a kingdom that is greater than Singapore, Asia, Europe, and all of the world combined. This kingdom, as we have heard in the last 2 weeks, is already here. But Pastor, I'm still not sure if I understand what this kingdom is all about. I can't seem to get a hold of it, to define the kingdom. Well, that's good. Because if you can define the kingdom, if you can get it, then it's too small to be the kingdom of God. And this is why Jesus used parables to describe the kingdom. The kingdom cannot be described or explained in one sentence, one paragraph, or even a whole book of words. The only way to understand the kingdom is to explore different facets of it using stories, analogies, metaphors. And today we will look at only one aspect through the lens of two parables. And so in our text today, Jesus describes the nature of the kingdom with ideas that are familiar to his audience. First, the planting, the growing, and the harvesting of crops. Second, the exponential growth of a tiny mustard seed. And so this morning I shall use two words to explain, as far as I can, using these two parables, the nature of the kingdom of God. These two words are meta-narrative and marvel. So children, you tell your parents, I've learned a new word. Say with me, meta-narrative. Well done. And then you go home, you ask your parents to explain what is meta-narrative, right, to you. Marvel, I'm sure you understand if you have watched enough Marvel stuff. Now, meta-narrative, for a start, is about having a big picture, an overarching story, a context, right? That's meta-narrative. And the short form for meta-narrative is Meta, right? You heard a lot of that. Metaverse and Meta, the company of Facebook and so on. So meta-narrative helps us to understand the nature of the kingdom. You see, the kingdom has a beginning and it has an end, right? A purpose. The kingdom was planted, that is created by God. The kingdom grows and is sustained by God. The kingdom is moving towards an intended end, right? An intended goal. And in the parables, this is represented by harvest time and a fully grown mustard tree. Now, why is this meta-narrative so important? Because it is a difference between a meaningful and a meaningless existence. Now today, atheists, those who insist that there is no God, say that the universe has no beginning, no purpose, no end. For them, therefore, life has no real meaning. But they are mistaken. And there are many books that have debunked the theory of the atheists. For example, in this book, Is Atheism Dead? The author uses science. He uses science to disprove the claims of the atheists that there is no God and no meta-narrative. It's a fascinating read, so do check it out. So dear friends, God exists and the kingdom is real. Whether you are studying or examining plants, animals, humans, or the cosmos, you will realize that everything has a beginning, is growing, is moving somewhere, is fulfilling a purpose that God intends for it. Know the imagery, the picture of a seed planted and then dying, then sprouting life, and then finally bearing fruit, is a beautiful metaphor of the gospel summary that we proclaim at every Holy Communion. Christ has died, the seed. Christ is risen, the new life. Christ will come again, the harvest. That's the meta-narrative of the kingdom. It gives meaning to our very existence. But more than that, the kingdom is also marvelous. The kingdom of God, according to the first parable, has a life of its own. Or as Jesus puts it in verse 28, the earth produces by itself. Yes, the human farmer has to plant the seed, but what happens next is largely beyond his control. Once the seed germinates, right, it follows a fixed pattern or process of growth. This process cannot be interrupted or changed. The farmer cannot tell the plant, hey plant, hurry up, grow. He can't do that, no matter how loud he shouts at the plant or what kind of music he plays to the plant. Once he has done the planting and the watering, there's no point sitting around anxiously watching over it. And so, as the parable tells us, he goes to sleep. Come, let's read this together. 1, 2, 3. He sleeps and rises night and day, and the seed sprouts and grows. He knows not how. The earth produces by itself first the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the ear. He knows not how, says Jesus. Now, some might argue that with modern science, we do know how a plant grows. Indeed, with the microscope and other tools we have today, we can examine the cells and the genetic codes of every living thing. Indeed, we can. But we still have no idea how the basic elements of oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen were brought together in the first place to form a single cell with its unique DNA. Scientists still have no idea how it all began. And that's why we can only marvel. Now, we don't have time to talk about the human body. Example, how your heart, your lungs are working right now with your brain, your eyes, your ears to make sense of my sermon. And we don't have time to consider the telescopic reality of our universe and all the marvelous laws and processes that govern planets, stars, and galaxies. Again, you might want to check out this book. And so the first parable teaches us that the kingdom of God has a life of its own beyond human control, and it is heading towards an intended end. That end is a time of harvest. Harvest not of plants, but of souls, of sons and daughters who will inherit the kingdom. Now the second parable tells us that God's marvelous kingdom is one that is unpredictable and paradoxical. How can such a tiny seed become such a big tree? How can something so frail end up as a strong and stable home for birds and their babies? Well, that's the nature of the kingdom. It's paradoxical, even subversive. The last shall be first. To die is to live. And the kingdom will be inherited by the poor, the weak, the sorrowful, the outcasts. Now, to some, this sounds ridiculous, but those who understand the gospel will marvel. Yes, we will marvel. Now, in the light of what we've just learned about the kingdom's nature, how shall we live? Again, I leave you with two words: faith and hope. Have faith. How? Well, go to sleep. All right, go to sleep when you can't do anything more about your situation. God is in charge. Don't waste your time or your energy worrying. You can't make the seed grow faster. In other words, be patient. Life in the kingdom cannot be rushed. As long as you have done your part, planting the seeds, watering the soil, removing the weeds, then wait patiently, and someday you will harvest the crops. You have done your part. Now let God do His, even if you don't understand His hidden ways. Well, next, have hope. How? Expect the unexpected. Be ready to be surprised. Yes, surprised by how your little mustard seed can grow and how your 5 loaves can feed 5,000. Hope in the Lord and do not despise what is in your hands. Instead, persevere. The grain will ripen and the tree will grow. Persevere for the harvest and for your reward in the kingdom of heaven. Now listen to these powerful words on what it means to live in faith and hope. Remain close to the moment and fully taste where you are. The future is hidden in the present as a seed in fertile ground. By nurturing and tending the soil in which we stand, we come in touch with the promise. Don't be impatient. Don't go back and pull out the seed to see if it is growing. It will not grow if you do that. Trust that a promise is given to you and that it is hidden in the soil in which you stand. It will grow into a strong tree, but you have to give it time. Henry Nouwen, in following Jesus. Well, at the beginning, I asked, why are you here? Perhaps you recognize a reality beyond the physical, and that even though God cannot be seen, you believe that He is real, and we can seek Him, love Him, and worship Him. Today's parables have taught us that God's kingdom is already here if only we perceive it. And so I end by asking you to pay attention. Right? Tell your neighbor, pay attention. Right? Tell your daddy and mommy, pay attention. Right? Tell your children, pay attention. Pay attention to the little clues that God has placed everywhere to teach us about His kingdom. The kingdom of God grows silently, and only those who pay attention will discern it. Now, for a start, let us learn to watch for clues that God has placed in nature, in His creation. The sky, the sea, the parks, the hills, of which we don't have many in Singapore. Still, I encourage those of you who tend to prefer to be trapped in air-conditioned rooms to go out for a walk today or this week. Will you do that? Will you please do that? And children, tell your parents, please bring us out to the open, to the parks. I'm sick and tired of looking at the iPad. Right? I want to go out and look at God's creation. And as you do so, ask God to help you to perceive His reality and discern His kingdom as you open your eyes and ears to His marvelous creation. Pay attention to kingdom traces all around you and let faith and hope arise in your spirit. In a short while, we will close with a song that teaches us to pay attention. I'm going to run through the lyrics with you right now so that when you sing it soon, you can appreciate it better. In the bulb there is a flower, in the seed an apple tree, in cocoons a hidden promise, butterflies will soon be free. In the cold and snow of winter, there's a spring that waits to be, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. Come, let's read with me. There's a song in every silence, seeking word and melody. There's a dawn in every darkness, bringing hope to you and me. From the past will come the future, what it holds a mystery, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. In our end is our beginning, in our time infinity, in our doubt there is believing, in our life eternity, in our death a resurrection, at the last a victory, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. Invite us all to stand as we prepare to sing this song together.